Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show with your hosts, Joey and Holly Baird.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show, 860 AM, WNOV, and W293CX 106.5. Thanks so much for spending a little time with us on this Saturday morning.
This week's guest is Gary Oppenheimer from AmpleHarvest.org. He's the founder and CEO. We're going to learn all about this unique and important organization. Welcome to the program, Gary.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be with you.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. I know we talked to Jamie, and she's like your right-hand person that makes this all work out. And we thank you for taking time to inform not only Holly and myself, but all of our listeners about the organization and how important it is for all of us.
Well, I thank you very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be speaking to everybody in Wisconsin, and I've never spoken there yet, so this is a great opportunity. AmpleHarvest.org is a program founded in 2009 with a singular mission of both educating and enabling America's home and community gardeners to be able to finally donate their excess garden produce to a nearby food pantry. We have 42 million people in the country who grow food. That's a lot of food. And that most of them grow too much food. And meanwhile, we've got pantries and food banks down the street that have no fresh food. So the idea was to connect the two so that for the rest of the gardener's life, whenever she or he grew too much food, that food would be donated so that hungry people in the community could benefit.
Well, in 2009, what was the aha moment, or what did you see that you said, I've got to do something, and here's what I'm going to do?
The aha moment, it's an interesting question. I had my own garden, which was overly prolific. I managed to find a place in my town, I'm from northern New Jersey, that I could donate the food to, but it took some work. But I was asked to take over the directorship of a local community garden, and the people there complained to me also that they had too much food. They were frustrated at the end of a season, seeing people bored, overwhelmed, or on vacation, and food going basically left to rot in the garden while they were gone. And my comment was, if we're going to have an ample harvest, the least we can do is get the people who really need it. They loved the idea. They set out to put a program together. I went on Google to find all the food pantries in my town, and Google said the nearest one was in a town 25 miles away, which I knew was wrong. The aha moment was in March of '09 when I realized if I, and I'm an internet pioneer, so if I as an internet pioneer had trouble finding food pantries in my community, so would everybody else. And if I and the community garden is growing too much food, so is everybody else. And this seemed like a necessary and great thing for the country in terms of solving several problems at the same time. One, obviously, is food waste, but the other is hunger, malnutrition, and by extension also helping the environment. And it all came together in May of 2009 when I launched AmpleHarvest.org. Within 150 days, which just happened to be World Food Day, 1,000 food pantries already signed up. The pantries saying, we want the food, we'd love to get it. And today we're past 8,100 pantries, which is about one out of every four in America.
Now, that's the pantries are signing up. You're not going after them and going, hey, please sign up. They're voluntarily signing up because they want this to be brought into their facilities.
Well, we're going after them to make them aware, but they have to sign up. And this is actually something that the people in your listeners can do, whatever community they're in. They should visit AmpleHarvest.org, do the Find a Pantry function, put in their own zip code, and if they know of a pantry in their community that they don't see in our list, they should go to that food pantry and say, hey, listen, there's a great program. You should sign up for it. And they should tell them four things. Number one, it's free. Number two, the pantry does not need refrigeration. Number three, it doesn't need storage. And number four, it's free. Say the free part twice. That's really, really important. Once the pantry is signed up, and once we have vetted them to make sure they meet our criteria, which is simple, that they're a nonprofit and they give food away for free, we activate them. And then whenever a gardener in that area says, oh my, too many zucchini or tomato or what have you, they come to AmpleHarvest.org, and that pantry is among the others that show up. They can then, they now know that whether it's the YMCA or the St. Mary's Church has a food pantry, and they know the day of the week and the hours when they want the donation. They can take the food there. By the way, that latter part, the day, the week, and hours, is critical, because if the food is, for example, Pantry says we want the food, please, on Saturday mornings from 9 to noon, because our clients are coming in Saturday from noon to 3. The gardener knows when to harvest, Saturday morning, Friday night. They take the food in Saturday morning. It's laid out. The clients, the hungry families, pick it up on Saturday afternoon. It's on a dinner table Saturday night. It is fresher than you and I could buy in the best supermarket, and it eliminates the storage and refrigeration need. And once the gardener knows that they can donate the food to this food pantry, when and where, they actually don't need us anymore. They'll donate there for the rest of their gardening life and tell their immediate friends and family who are gardeners that this particular place would love to get your food.
Fantastic. Now, we talked about food waste on the show here a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
How much food does America really waste?
On the whole, if you look at the big picture of the United States as a whole, we waste enough food to every single day fill the Rose Bowl. It's a staggering amount of food. That statistic does not include one number, and that is the food waste in America's home and community gardens. We did a 2-year study with 2,500 gardeners, and what we learned was that the excess food grown just in gardens, not farms, just in gardens, exceeds 11 billion pounds. It's enough to feed 28 million people. You could see the study, you could see the results. There's actually a university white paper written on it. If you go to ampleharvest.org/study, it is a huge amount of food, but it's also a huge opportunity for the country.
Now, you touched on this slightly a few moments ago, but why do people who have gardens waste food, and why haven't they been donating to food pantries for years? Why is this just a new concept now to home gardeners?
They are growing too much food because we all do that. You know, I come out of March and April. I'm fidgety from the winter, and I can't wait to get out, and I just plant too many seeds. And to be blunt, you know, sometimes animals or fungi get your crop, and so you overplant just to make sure that you're going to get what you really want. The reason they haven't donated has been because we have all grown up with the misinformation. I forget the misinformation. We've all grown up with the mantra from food drives of jars, cans, boxes, no fresh food. We've all been inculcated with the idea that we're not allowed to donate fresh food. We can only donate store-bought food. So for most gardeners, they haven't even thought about donating stuff because every food drive they've ever been at, they've been told, we're not going to take your fresh food. The reason for that was how the American food bank system works. And I don't want to go into details in a short time, but the bottom line is when you donate food at a food drive, it'll ultimately get to a food pantry. It could be days or weeks later. Now, that's fine for store-bought food. It's not going to work for fresh food. The idea behind ampleharvest.org was to shortcut that entire process. So as I said earlier, the food would go from my garden to somebody's dinner table on a same-day basis. This is really a peer-to-peer solution that is, while it's a local program, we do it on a national scale.
And we've got listeners not only in Milwaukee but replay in all 50 states and around the world, essentially. But
now, for people who are listening who don't have an overabundance of food, how do they find these food pantries with the fresh produce?
Anybody can go to ampleharvest.org. If you're asking about somebody who actually is having trouble putting food on the table, they can visit ampleharvest.org and also use the Find Pantry function, and then it will contact the pantries that come up and say, can I come in? I should say that if anybody's having outright difficulty to begin with feeding their family, they should either contact whyhunger.org or 211, the National Hunger Hotline, for assistance on those things. I mean, that should be your primary go-to point for any challenge in your life, but you can certainly come to a food pantry on ampleharvest.org. Since the food donated is excess food from gardens, somebody should not go to ampleharvest.org in February if they're in the north and expect to find locally grown garden food there. It won't happen. The food comes in waves, particularly when people are in their harvest, spring or autumn harvest or whatever. That's when the bulk of that food comes in. The crux of what we're trying to solve is ending the waste of food. The benefit It's the millions of families across the country who need it. Let me give you one other sidebar note. We have a program every year called Centerpieces for Pantries. We're about to announce it, in which we encourage people for their holiday events, Thanksgiving, Christmas dinners, weddings, bar mitzvahs, what have you, to not put floral arrangements on the table. FTD hates us for this. Put out arrangements of whole fruits and vegetables. Whether you bought them or grew them is irrelevant. Make that your centerpiece, and you can donate that to a food pantry the next day. So that even in the cold weather, gardeners or otherwise, people can donate fresh food to a food pantry that otherwise would never have it.
Absolutely. Now, it doesn't take many people to turn on the news and see there's a lot of divisions in this country, but what you've created or started to develop is what's called the Interfaith Program. Now, can you explain what that is and how, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, food brings us all together, and explain the importance of this Interfaith Program?
Absolutely. The program, the website's foodwasteweekend.org. This was a program we piloted in 2016. We started really for real this year. The idea was that for all of the people, and there are many of us working in the food waste realm, trying to get America not to waste food, the one group I always noticed that was missing was the faith community. And it's important because 70% of pantries are in a house of worship. Food Waste Weekend is an opportunity that we created so that clergy, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, and Unitarian, could all do faith-specific sermons on the topic of food waste all in the same weekend. We, in effect, had a single sermon, faithy sounding but secular sermon written about food waste. And then a partner organization translated it into New Testament, Old Testament, Quran, etc. So for each faith community. The idea was for the clergy, the rabbis, the priests, and imams, etc., to go to the site, find the sermon that's appropriate for their faith, and then on that particular weekend or any other weekend, when they give the sermon, they could talk about food waste, and more particularly, they could start talking to their congregants not about let's feed the hungry, but about let's end hunger. It changes the entire dynamic. We even had a game show there for the religious school and 8 calls to action that the clergy person can give to the congregants to tell them what to do. So the cool thing is that during Food Waste Weekend or any weekend since then, an imam in a mosque on a Friday, a rabbi in a synagogue on a Sunday, or a minister and priest on a Saturday, or a minister and priest on a Sunday would be speaking on the same theme to their congregations about ending food waste in America, although it too, Food Waste Weekend actually applies on a global scale.
Well, Gary, we greatly appreciate you taking time sharing the information about ampleharvest.org, not only with Holly, myself, but all of our listeners live and in the future here on replay, on podcast and in-studio video.
It's my pleasure. And if anybody wants to support our work, ampleharvest.org/donate. It would be very helpful and appreciated. But thank you. It was lovely talking to you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Gary.
And if you're in the Milwaukee or surrounding areas, just tune your radio to 860 AM or FM 106.5. You can also find links on our Facebook pages, The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener and Home Canning. Our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, click on the radio tab at the top of the page, then click on the Listen Live button, and you'll have immediately access to our live program. Mobile devices work very well also. Go to your app store and download for free the TuneIn app or the Simple Radio app. Then search WNOV 860, save it to your favorites, and you can have access to our radio show live wherever you're at in the world. Our radio program will also have podcast replay under the radio tab several days following the live broadcast. You can find all of these links in the show notes below. Our show airs 9 to 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every Saturday, March through the end of October. And we want to thank our sponsors because without them, this would not be anywhere possible. You can find all of their links under the radio tab on our website at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.